The human mind is a prisoner of the horizon. Since the first moment our ancestors stood upright, our biology has been a search for the floor. We interpret the presence of solid ground as the only objective truth of the universe. It is our ultimate safety net, the foundation of every city, every memory, and every grave. But out here, in the cold architecture of the cosmos, that instinct is a fatal error. Imagine stepping off the ledge of a world that has no bottom. As you drop into the upper mists of a gas giant, your brain will scream for an impact that will never come. You will count the seconds, bracing your muscles for a collision with a surface that doesn't exist. There is no splash to break your fall, no stone to shatter your bones. There is only the agonizing realization that you are no longer falling through the air, you are sinking into a permanent trap. Stop looking for the surface. It is a ghost, a relic of a rocky world that has no place in the kingdom of the giants. On planets like Jupiter or Saturn, the concept of down is not a direction toward a destination, it is a sentence of total assimilation. You are entering a domain where the sky doesn't end, it simply thickens until it becomes a crushing, liquid vice that defies every law of human intuition. This is the forensic study of a descent into the impossible. We are leaving the comfort of the crust to witness the brutal engineering of 40 million atmospheres of pressure. We will watch as the very atoms of the human form are unspooled by a gravity that has no obstacle. The floor was always a luxury. The abyss is the reality. Welcome to the universe without solid ground. We suffer from a cognitive bias born from our biology. We are creatures of the crust. We evolved on a silicate shell, thin and fragile, floating atop a mantle of molten rock. Because of this, our languages and our logic are built on the concept of standing. We build foundations. We maintain our footing. We stand our ground. But out there, in the dark theater of the cosmos, standing is a physical impossibility. The giants of our solar system, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, are not lands to be conquered. They are storms to be survived. They are vast, spherical oceans of hydrogen and helium that deepen for tens of thousands of kilometers without a single stone to break your fall. There is no surface here. There is no beach where the atmosphere ends and the planet begins. There is only a gradual, agonizing thickening of the mist. To understand the horror of these worlds, we must strip away the romance of space travel and look at the brutal engineering of phase transitions. What happens to a human body when the sky itself turns into a vice? What happens when down ceases to be a direction and becomes a permanent sentence? We are going to descend into these cauldrons. We will follow the trajectory of a doomed astronaut falling into the great red spot, witnessing the moment where the human concept of solid ground is crushed under the weight of a billion atmospheres. Let's simulate the descent. You are dropping into the cloud tops of Jupiter. At first, it looks majestic, bands of ammonia ice and hydrosulfide clouds painting a masterpiece of violence. But as you pass through the upper mists, the light begins to die. The sun, which was a piercing diamond in space, becomes a diffused, sickly glow, and then, eventually, it vanishes altogether. You are now falling through a darkness that is absolute. This is where the psychological fracture occurs. The human mind craves boundaries. We need to know where the air stops and the water begins. But here, the boundary is a gradient. The atmosphere simply thickens. Most people cannot handle this concept. They prefer the safety of solid lies to the terror of fluid truths. If you value this descent into the cold reality of the cosmos, please like this video. It is the only way to validate this truth before the abyss swallows everything. The pressure outside your suit has now surpassed the deepest trenches of Earth's oceans. The air around you is now indistinguishable from a liquid. You are falling slower now, not because of a parachute, but because the medium itself is fighting your descent. You are no longer falling, you are sinking. And the temperature is rising. You are being cooked in a pressure cooker the size of 1,000 Earths, drifting blindly into a crushing abyss. We have reached the phase transition zone. This is the domain of supercritical fluid. In physics, this is a state of matter where the distinction between liquid and gas disappears entirely. Imagine a fog that becomes so dense it weighs as much as water, yet it still moves like a cloud. You cannot swim in it, but you cannot breathe it. It is a state of existence that defies human intuition. Your suit is now groaning under the stress. The hydrostatic pressure is pushing against every square inch of your body with equal, relentless force. It is the ultimate claustrophobia, an embrace that tries to make you smaller. Deep inside this supercritical ocean, the hydrogen molecules themselves are being forced into unnatural configurations. There is no cavern to hide in, no shelf to rest on. If you could shine a light, the beam would be swallowed by the density of the medium after a few meters. You are suspended in a void of superheated fluid hydrogen. The noise is deafening, the roar of thermal currents moving at supersonic speeds, transferring heat from the planetary core to the upper atmosphere. You are a speck of dust in a blast furnace. The horror here isn't a monster. The horror is the neutrality of the physics. The planet doesn't hate you. It simply dictates that at this depth, biology is in error. The pressure is now high enough to turn carbon into diamond, and yet, you still haven't hit bottom. You are barely scratching the skin of the giant. Below you lies the metallic hydrogen ocean, a place where the laws of chemistry as you know them begin to break down, and where the concept of solid ground becomes a conductive, liquid nightmare. We have now descended 20,000 kilometers. The darkness here is conductive. You have entered the realm of metallic hydrogen. The pressure is so incomprehensibly high that hydrogen atoms have been squeezed until their electrons were stripped away, creating a sea of liquid protons. It behaves like a metal. It conducts electricity. It generates the most powerful magnetic field in the planetary system. At this depth, your body is no longer biology, it is carbon residue drifting in a superconductor ocean. The temperature here rivals the surface of the sun. There is no suit, no ship, and no technology ever conceived by humanity that could survive this zone for more than a millisecond. Yet, the fall continues. You are now part of the planet's dynamo, circulating in currents of liquid metal that have been flowing for 4 billion years. This is the true face of the universe, violent, toxic, and utterly indifferent to the fragility of life. This channel is an archive for those who prefer the cold vacuum of reality over the warmth of a comforting lie. If you belong to the minority that finds peace in the terrifying scale of the cosmos, you are home. Subscribe to the frequency. Join the survivors who watch the abyss without blinking. Do it now, before the signal fades. Hypothetically, if you could survive the metallic ocean, you would approach the center. This is where the core paradox begins. Logic dictates there must be a solid core, a seed of rock and ice that started the planet's formation. But at temperatures of 30,000 Kelvin and pressures of 40 million atmospheres, the word solid loses its meaning. The core is likely soluble, dissolving into the metallic ocean above it like a pill in water. There is no landing. There is no satisfying thud of boots hitting dust. The boundary between the metallic ocean and the core is a fuzzy, diffuse transition of heavy elements. You do not land on the core, you merge with it. You become an impurity in the heart of the giant. This destroys the final human hope, the hope of arrival. In a gas giant, the journey doesn't end with a destination. It ends with assimilation. Most people walk through life assuming the ground is a guarantee. They are asleep at the wheel of a fragile planet. Wake them up. Take this simulation and send it to someone who needs to see how thin the line is between existence and oblivion. Share the vertigo. Let's see if they can handle the drop. We return now to the surface of Earth. You are sitting in a chair. Your feet are planted firmly on the floor. Gravity is a gentle, familiar 1g. But the perspective has shifted. You now know that this stability is a cosmic glitch, a brief sanctuary in a universe that offers no such hospitality elsewhere. The ground beneath you is not a right, it is a temporary miracle. We are like shipwrecked sailors clinging to a thin piece of driftwood in the middle of a permanent hurricane. We build our cities, our empires, and our entire identities on this fragile silicate crust, pretending we are safe. We ignore the magma churning below and the infinite void screaming above. We live as if the floor is an absolute truth, when in reality, it is a rare exception to a brutal rule. Out there, in the dark theater of the giants, there is no place to stand. There are only endless falls, crushing pressures, and storms that will outlast our species. The universe is not made of solid ground, it is made of vast, bottomless abysses that do not care if you have a place to land. Reality is not a foundation, it is a suspension of the laws that govern the rest of the cosmos. So, look at the floor beneath you one last time. Treat it with respect, for it is the only surface you will ever truly know. How solid does your world feel now that you've seen the alternative? Is your life a foundation, or just a temporary pause in an infinite fall? Leave your answer in the comments. Let the void hear your voice before the screen goes dark.